Hello and welcome to the Business of the Business podcast. I'm your co-host JP John Paz for the two-man power trip. Of course, joining me is the financial wrestling genius himself, Mr. Lavie Margolin. Lavie, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. We often say it's a special episode, but today it's a really special episode. WWE Ambassador, two-time book author, and as we'll learn about today, most importantly, dad, welcoming Titus O'Neil to the podcast.
How you doing, guys? Thanks for having me on.
Doing very good. Thank you for having us. And of course, the book, second book, Wrestling with Fatherhood, My Championship Journey to My Greatest Title, Dad. So please tell us all about this book and this journey.
So it's first and foremost, I'm not an expert on fatherhood. So I want to make people know that for sure that this is not something that if you follow this manual, follow this book, you're going to be dad of the year or whatever. This is just me sharing my journey into fatherhood and the importance of it, and just sharing not only my journey but other people that I've had a chance to be a part of the project, like Will Packer and Mark Henry, Kofi Kingston, and several others, just to get their perspective on the journey of fatherhood, the excitement of finding out you're going to be a dad for the first time, to the nervousness that also coincides with that, and the challenges of, regardless of your career choice, whether you're being a WWE superstar, a teacher, a doctor, a lawyer, a service man or woman. Fatherhood is a very interesting journey for any man, because every child is different, every man is different, every situation is different. And what I've come to find is that universally the thing that dads are needed to have the most from their families is not just what they can provide, or not them just being a protector, but them being present. And sometimes that's a very difficult thing for you to do when you have a certain career path.
Now, what inspired you to do this second book? Like, what made you want to do the second book?
Well, I just think in society as a whole, I feel like there's been this perception that some people have tried to put out there that I can raise a child by myself. I don't need a man. And I look at various folks, including myself, that would say that that's a bold-faced lie. I think that you need both parents and both perspectives of a man and a woman to raise a whole child. And even if it's not a biological father or a biological mother, I think both parents bring a perspective of life that is needed, to make a whole great human being. And I understand that even though I didn't grow up with a biological father, I grew up with male mentors and people that took me in as a son figure and a father figure, that have allowed me to live the life that I've been able to live, but also have the perspectives that I have in regards to family. And I do believe that in a lot of families that don't have a male role model, whether it's a daughter or a son, struggles reside, and sometimes those children grow up to be to have daddy issues as adults. And you don't really hear people talk about mommy issues. You hear people talk about folks having daddy issues. And I wanted to just put something out there that not only just took head on the notion that fathers are not needed, but also not only are they needed, they're also valued.
Why do you think it's important to accept that, as a dad, you're not perfect, and just be able to be open to learning?
I think being open to understanding that as human beings, we're not perfect. Regardless of it's male or female, that we put this emphasis on perfection so much that we don't allow ourselves to fail without regret. We don't allow ourselves even to win some cases without regret, because even our wins, for some people, they got a 98 on a test and they were like, dang, I should have got 100. And I'm like, Yeah, but everybody in your class got an 85. So you're definitely still doing better than what most people would do. And it's okay not to be perfect every time. In regards to fatherhood, like, it's not about being perfect, it's about being the most authentic version of yourself. And I think for human beings in general, if we focused on being actually who we are and not who society or our family members or who our jobs want us to portray to be, we'll be more freer society, we'll be a more mentally healthy society, and we'll be a more humble society. Because once you look yourself in the mirror and realize you have flaws, and you start working on those flaws, and you don't judge other people based on their flaws because you don't want to be judged by your flaws, it makes for a greater relationship despite differences, whether it's father to son, son to daughter, father daughter, husband wife, whatever it may be. Focus less on the other person's flaws and more so on our inefficiencies, it gives us the opportunity to actually be a living example instead of being a living nightmare to other people, because everyone's walking on eggshells because they're seeking this quote unquote perfection that they will never achieve. And I think with our children, it is more important now than it ever to allow our kids to fail and help them through that failure, navigate through that failure, help them through some of those bad decisions. And not, yeah, there are consequences for everything, but everything doesn't require it to be death or death mode. Um, I used to think when I got divorced that divorce was death of life, you know. But if you keep living long enough, it could be the best thing that ever happened to you. Um, and even in that regard, being divorced and having children is a difficult path of a journey of you being a better human being too, because now you have to make a decision. Am I going to allow this failed relationship, failed marriage, stop me from being the best person I can be in this space? Or am I going to allow this failure to kind of be my crutch and set my excuse for why I can't get better as a person? And then therefore, now you got to wait for the perfect opportunity or the perfect time instead of just living your life. And there is no perfect opportunity. There is no perfect time. Every day that you have breath in your body is an opportunity to be a better human being. And if fatherhood is part of that growth process for you and that learning process for you, you're going to have failures to go along with that. But you're going to have failures in life in general, uh, that people are looking to see how you handle that. And when you're a dad, people want to see how you handle losing a job, or how you handle losing an opportunity, or how you handle having to discipline your children for certain acts or certain missteps in their life. And I would much rather my kids live with the fear of disappointing me than the actual fear of me itself, because I don't want to disappoint my children. I want my children to be proud every time my name is uttered in a room that I'm in or a room that I'm not in. And that isn't based on me being the perfect dad or the perfect person. It's based on me being willing to operate in the perfect will of God on my life.
What is the mistake you've made as a dad, and like, what did you learn from that mistake?
Well, I learned, probably in the teen years for my kids, like, I learned that, like, how if I raise my voice, I mean, I have a very boisterous voice anyway, but if I raise my voice to my kids about, hey, how many times do I have to tell you guys to clean up the kitchen or clean up after yourself or make sure you make your bed or yada, yada, yada. It didn't take all that. You know what I'm saying? And my kids were, when they got to a certain age, I'm glad that they were, some people call it brave, but it's not brave. They were just open, because that door has always been open for communication. They were just mature enough in how they were able to express it. And it made me take a really strong look in the lens, not just at how I communicate with my children, but how I communicate with everybody, especially in times of frustration. And so it was a very humbling moment for me that allowed me to not only show ability to my kids and say, hey, you know, you guys are right. Like I can do better and I will do better. And because I made that pact with them, we now can hold each other accountable for what I want out of them and what they want out of me.
What do you think is the toughest part about being a dad?
I think time management and being present, even when like you're around sometimes, depending on your job or depending on your responsibilities away from the house. Sometimes we as dads have a problem like disconnecting from work or from outside, you know, influences. And sometimes our children, they really just want their dad to be present. Like, there's been several occasions where like my kids have gone to Super Bowls, they've gone to national championship games, they've gone to concerts, they've gone to all types of stuff. They've flown on private planes, they've done a lot of stuff. And it's been some occasions where there have been some big moments or big concerts, and my kids be like, no, Dad, I just want to sit here and watch TV. We're good. And sitting there and watching TV, and then they make the rules of we're all going to put our phones on the charger, no phones at the dinner table, no phones when we're watching a movie, when we're watching a TV series, no phones. And that's their way of teaching me how to be present. And I think that's the greatest gift that you can give your children is your presence, being present in the moment. Even if you've heard their stories, you know, about what went on at practice or what went on, you know, depending on the age, some kids will tell you the same story 5 days in a row, and you need to sit there and listen to it as if it's the first time that you've heard it every single time. And if you get the opportunity, which I did not, but I have had a chance to work with a lot of elderly people, but I didn't get a chance to do this with my grandmother because she passed away at a very young age to breast cancer. But if you get the opportunity to sit under the learning tree of an elderly person, they will talk to you about stories from the past every chance that they get. So while you may have heard it before, those moments are crucial for the growth of your relationship with your children, because when they become old, those same stories that they were telling you, they're going to be telling their children and their grandchildren. And it's just as you get older, you get more stories to tell. And I just want to be in a position on a consistent basis for my children where I continue to give them opportunities to tell stories and to make stories and moments with them, so that when they are parents and when they are grandparents as well, that they'll be able to share stories of fatherhood, of family, etc., traditions that were started or traditions that were broken, generational curses that we had versus the generational curses that were broken. I'm the first person in my family to graduate from high school. I'm the first person in my family to graduate from college, and I was a product of a rape. My mother had me at 12 years old, and was driven from St. Augustine, Florida, down to Boynton Beach, Florida, to have an abortion, and she jumped out of the car, and months later I was born. I was labeled a kid that would be dead or in jail by the time I was 16. And so if it wasn't for the investments of others, when they had essentially nothing to gain in return, I wouldn't be in a position that I am today as a father, as a son, as a servant. And I understand that, like, with whom much is given, much is required. And as fathers, we have a chance to set or reset the course of our families' lives. There are some people that grew up with dads and some that were alcoholics or drug users or whatever. And you grow up and you can make one decision. You can grow up and make a decision, I want to be completely like my father, or I want to be completely opposite of it. I knew at 13 years old, and I talked about it in my book, when my best friend's dad was murdered, who was a very well-known drug dealer down in South Florida. He said after his dad's funeral that many people thought his dad was a bad person, but to him, his dad was a hero. And I said at 13 years old, if I ever have children, I want to be a hero to my children, because I don't have that hero in my life. And even though his dad was in the life that he was in, he still was a good person when it came to, he would get people registered, pay for registrations for kids to play youth sports. He would buy shoes and clothes and cleats and reward his son and his other two sons for making an honor roll and stuff like that. And he would constantly say, be better than me, don't be like me, be better than me. And even though I've been pretty productive in life and very, very good in a lot of ways, I tell my kids the same exact thing. Don't try to be like me, be better than me.
And it was also great when I was watching Bad Blood, or the build-up to Bad Blood. They were talking about, Cody and Roman. They show up at the field. There's an awesome song called "I Am the Storm." I downloaded it, and it was awesome to hear you a part of that song. I was shocked. I was like, "Wow, this is a great, awesome song." How did that come about?
Me and Bo Williams, who's an artist who has done several songs for several different movies and film projects, as well as the opening song to Monday Night Raw and SmackDown. He's been the producer of that. He's a good friend of mine. We work a lot together with the Tampa Bay Lightning here in Tampa. And he called me up one day and said, hey, I have this idea, and I want to run it by you, where you and Sonia Bryson are on a song with me. And I think it's going to be a pretty big hit. And he gave me the premise of the song and things like that. And then we got into the studio and worked on it together. And obviously it came out a hit. And, I've been doing voiceovers for a lot of different teams and organizations and commercials and stuff like that. So to be able to lend my voice to such an amazing project with a great message, a message of hope and overcoming and things like that, it was very special to me, and especially to be able to do it with Bo, who is one of the most talented people in the music industry today.
Hand it over to you, Lavie.
Thanks. So, you've accomplished so much, not only inwardly in terms of working with your family, certainly, but outwardly as well. And one of the things people are curious about is your role as a WWE Ambassador. What does that mean, and what element of it are you most proud of?
Well, first and foremost, I think the biggest element that I'm most proud of is the fact that they would create the position for me. It's never been done before. It is something that it's not about, your in-ring work. It's really about you being a great human being, and the company trusting that you will show yourself to be a great human being in every way, shape, and form in life. Not just on camera, not just in a ring, but you've also exhibited what it truly means to be a global ambassador of good. And so we started at WrestleMania when I hosted WrestleMania in Tampa, Florida, alongside Hulk Hogan. And we started what's called the Community Champion Showcase, where every premium live event, we highlight grassroots organizations that have been doing tremendous work in their communities, and we supply them with a financial gift, as well as utilize our assets and our platform to hopefully garner more attention to their work so that they can get more future funding from other sources as well. And we would award them a title, WWE title, that had their organization logo on it as well. And so we started it in Tampa, and it's been happening ever since we had WrestleMania in Tampa, where we have all our premium live events. So we try to honor various organizations that are doing amazing work in the community, and we're trying to support that alongside their current partners, as well as some of our current partners.
As the WWE ownership and management has changed over the years, it seems like this important work, there's been no bumps in the road. Maybe it's only growing. How has the support been from the TKO team and certainly Triple H?
I think Triple H for sure has been a great steward of the resources that WWE platform has provided, even with the merger. I think one of the things that I enjoy about what Triple H does, he has allowed talent to tap into their philanthropic endeavors more. Things that people are more passionate about, they're able to be more open and forthright about as well. You take a guy like Sami Zayn, who several years back, he was worried about. He called me and he was worried about whether or not he'd have backlash for starting his own nonprofit to help those in Syria. And I said, if you got backlash for starting something that would help human beings, especially those that look like you, come from your background, etc. If you got backlash for that, then it would be a clear sign to me that I'm working for the wrong company, and that their wherewithal to see the capabilities of not only the company as a whole utilizing their platform, but every talent, every producer, every backstage hand, everyone that's involved with this platform has an opportunity to change people's lives forever. And if we don't take that opportunity to do so, then we're just mismanaging what God has given us. And I'm happy to say that today we've done an amazing job of not only garnering new partnerships with various organizations, but also helping those organizations double, in most cases, their impact by not only our financial contributions, but also through our talent portal, where different talent have been alongside organizations like Boys and Girls Club, several of us now being a part of the Boys and Girls Club Alumni Hall of Fame, us aligning with our long-standing partners at Make-A-Wish, our long-standing partners at Special Olympics, our long-standing partners with the military troops. All these have continued, and I'm sure that they will continue because they're near and dear to not only Triple H and the leadership there, but also those in the TKO group, which also embodies UFC. And there are a lot of fighters and performers that also share that same desire to make an impact with this global platform that they have.
Talking about developing and supporting others and systems, from what I understand, you came up in your career from the WWE's affiliation with the FCW, with Florida Championship Wrestling, an evolution into NXT, and now we have WWE ID. With these initiatives, how bright do you see the future in terms of talent development?
I see the future continuing to grow for several reasons. Number one, just the quality of athlete that WWE is attracting, as well as the training performance center and the trainers that are there, the minds that are there, the resources that are available. Every superstar or future superstar that either comes in through the WWE recruitment process, the WWE college recruitment process, or the WWE ID program, all instantly have a leg up when it comes to the development of their personal careers and their personal brands, with how we utilize social media, how we utilize the resources with our TV assets, and how we utilize our programs when it comes to community engagement and allowing talent to kind of find their passion and then really sink their teeth into that. It really does provide the opportunity for talent to not only become great performers, but be better overall human beings. From the drug policy to the counseling that's available to the training that's available, it gives every talent that currently is on the roster and any current any talent that are looking to any future talent that are going to be on the roster an opportunity to truly be WWE superstars, not wrestlers, not performers, superstars. And being a superstar requires a lot of work. It requires you understanding how to walk the red carpet at the ESPYs one night and then go and be in a TLC match the next night. It requires you to be in a TLC match that night and then get up at 5:30 a.m. for morning media runs until noon so that you can do live TV the following night. It requires you to be able to perform in various different countries and still maintain your health and your wellness and your mental wellness. And I think that right now the company has positioned itself to be the best resource incubator for talent in the world. And I am extremely proud to see the growth in so many different ways. And yeah, we could talk about box office gates. We could talk about merchandise sales. We can talk about newly formed business partnerships. But what you need to talk about the most is, are the talent happy that are in the locker room right now? And I would say universally that answer would be a yes.
So being involved in so many things outside of the ring, I'm not sure if there's the time always to reflect back on an in-ring career. But according to the records online, your last match was about 4 years ago against Bobby Lashley during the Thunderdome era for the U.S. title. Do you ever get the itch to get back in there in the ring?
I do get the itch to get back in the ring. I love competing. I love entertaining. But as I said, in previous interviews here recently, if there's an opportunity that works well for me to do so, yeah, we'll definitely do it. But I'm like literally getting ready to do 2 or 3 other film projects. I've already did 2 film projects that'll be coming out in 2025. I do desire to have a high level of success in Hollywood, much like my fellow WWE stars that have made that jump, including one of my best friends who got me into the business of wrestling, which is Dave Bautista. And I am really excited about that process of becoming that, and I have some great people to follow. I have some great people to lean on, and John Cena and Dave Bautista to ask questions and to get just kind of the best practices to help me on this journey, much like I would pick the brains of many of the veterans when it came to wrestling. I do the same thing. And fortunately for me, I have a lot of people that are already in Hollywood that are friends of mine that can kind of help me continue developing in that journey. And also saying a good word here and there for different projects.
Wonderful. Thank you. Let me turn over to John.
Give us one last big push for the book, Wrestling with Fatherhood, and where everybody can get it as well.
All right, yeah, Wrestling with Fatherhood, my championship journey to my greatest title, Dad, is available on Amazon, and it is definitely a must-read for any father, future father, or even a gift to a mother or sister of young men, because it is, to me, a generational pipeline of understanding that's needed to be gained when it comes to the topic of fatherhood. And I think when people read this book, it's a very easy read. It's a read that is very relatable on so many levels to so many fathers. And it doesn't matter what political affiliation you have. It's not about your race or your ethnicity. It's truly about something that I know for a fact can never be politicized. Fatherhood and family. Everyone has their own views on how they approach fatherhood and family, but everybody can also understand that it is important and it is much needed, especially in some parts of our society where there are not that many male mentors and positive male leadership.
All right, wrestling with my fatherhood. Titus O'Neil, thank you so much for all the time. Really appreciate it. Also, everybody check out the first book as well. There's no such thing as a bad kid. So, Titus, thank you so much.
Thank you, and I appreciate you guys having me on.
Thanks. Take care.
Thank you. Have a good one, Titus. Appreciate it.
Sorry, you too.
All right, Lavie, let's get into the news a little bit here. We'll kind of run through it maybe a little quickly. The WWE's got something going on. What do they have going on?
Yeah, I have to get in the mindset. I loved it. As we were talking about it, being dads ourselves, sort of
Yes.
In that mindset. So now back into the news. Really interesting piece, which on its face, it's not wrestling news, but of course it is whenever anything happens with the TKO brand, especially in terms of distribution. The Roku channel has become one of the most well-known streaming services, and now they have added UFC to the Roku channel. So we haven't seen WWE touch the fast streaming services yet. And there's a lot of opportunity there. I think for something like the UFC, they might see like taking their old content and redistributing it there, sort of like as like a little bit of an additional icing on the cake since it's sports. Although I love watching old MMA, but for WWE, a lot of their older content is more valued, right? Like the premium live events and so on. So, coming to fast would have to be a balance, but I think if that's where viewers are going, it's important to set up a presence there. So that's one thing. John, we were talking a little bit off air about the WWE holiday shows, and I think ticket prices have generally been higher. I think that's why thus far we're seeing lower numbers in terms of sales. Still time to go for WWE. It was about 6,500 tickets out for Madison Square Garden, a show that will be +4ing on. Speaking about being dads, you're bringing your son, I'm bringing my son. We're not in the same section, but we're close to one another. So that'll be interesting to see. They might even announce that they made the most money, but in terms of making fans, right, how many families are not going because of the prices? And WWE, they even announced a discount, 30%. Actually, not just WWE, for MSG, they announced a discount. Yeah. So it might be slow all around, which actually includes the bull riding, which will soon be under TKO's umbrella. And finally, and this was like a curious thing to me, that Gabe Sapolsky, who we all know originally from ECW, program writer to backstage hand to Ring of Honor, being one of the main persons there, to WWN Live, Evolve, Dragon Gate USA, and all of that, and who's been affiliated with the WWE now off and on for a number of years. He's still doing his camps, and he's actually doing it with Ace Steel, which is really interesting. Politically, some people have been a little bit dim on those camps in the past. Sometimes it could feel like when he has access to certain talents and programs, that is it sort of like, do I have to go to a camp in order to be an extra on a show and so on? But interesting to see that he's still out there with these events. Certainly a great mind of the business.
Yeah, definitely the WWN trial with Ace Steel and Gabe. So that's a pretty damn interesting. As far as AEW is concerned, what is going on? I know we don't talk too much of AEW, but what's going on with AEW?
Yeah, so we have to cap it off a little bit at least. Like, we're like, why don't they book smaller venues, for a long time? So apparently, and I didn't realize it was so complicated, but it sort of makes sense, is that a lot of their rigging and lighting systems and everything related to that was for major arenas. So to move to places that have, smaller ceilings, lower depth, whatever it may be, they had to actually create or purchase this sort of rigging equipment, whatever it is, production equipment. So they're finally ready now. So we see a lot of the new shows into the new year will be in smaller venues. We've certainly talked about the Hammerstein Ballroom. The real question is not necessarily that they're moving now to the smaller venues, but will this change the perception? Meaning that, can they turn the lights on in these venues? And now I'm a little bit worried because Now you're going to a 5,000 seat venue. Now, what can you expect there now with how they draw? 2,200? Do you still need to keep the lights off? That would be unfortunate. But if you find the right size venues and it looks better on TV, exciting crowd, and so on, can you like make it seem like a hotter promotion? Like I remember WCW, like probably the earlier days of Nitro, right? They'd be like in these smaller venues, like mid-sized professional venues, and it looked like a really hot product, even if at the time they wouldn't have been able to sell 20,000 seats, which they did a couple of years later. So I'm really looking at that perception. And even, right, John, near you, New Jersey, or not too far, in Newark, that they sold 10,000 seats. So that was great, but right, it's a 20,000 seat building. So still, I know that you cut it down for production, and certainly that's the least of their problems. So 10,000 seats for something that's produced for maybe 13,000, but there's still a bit of a mismatch. It's hard to get like the perfect thing, like how many 10,000 seat buildings are there in major venues. So you have to have like a trade-off of some sort.
Yes, definitely. How about New Japan Pro Wrestling? Speaking about going to maybe some smaller building stuff, how are they doing? What's going on with them?
Yeah, so maybe New Japan would love to have the AEW problems of just getting 2,000 people, but obviously there's that that cost challenge that AEW is bearing. But looking at these shows that New Japan has had booked, and very much their traditional venues for a while. The Walter Pyramid in Long Beach, California on December 15th, so about 3 weeks out as we record this. 1,000 tickets distributed of a potential setup of 2,760. And Battle in the Valley, January 11th, that has a similar potential setup, 2,143, and they've distributed just 798 tickets. So slow, not necessarily bleak, but they need, they've been announcing some big talents for these shows. Maybe some big draw, something to really get people to go, because some of these talents you could see in AEW regularly, and there's just so many promotions crossing over into California. So that's something you sort of need even more of a draw, but something that is good for talent development, and also probably doesn't hurt, in terms of finances. New Japan Pro Wrestling Academy is accepting applications for their first trade course of 2025. So always interesting to see who comes out of those shows, right? Years ago, Bryan Danielson and Samoa Joe were certainly cross-trained in a number of places, but certainly that being part of their finishing school, even if not by name. I'm not sure if it was called the Academy at the time.
How about MLW? What's the latest with MLW?
So a couple of weeks ago, we were left with questions. There was one wrestling production company was kind of sort of shaming MLW for how things turned out for them, that they couldn't run a live show and so on. So Apocalypto, as they intended. So the Observer had a piece on this. MLW, they held one of the biggest shows in their history on November 9th in Chicago with an advance sale of whatever. I like that Dave acknowledges that, because he says they claimed 2,000. It's generally about 1,200. The crowd was said to be 85% CMLL fans. And that's really impressive, actually. They did a TV taping before the top matches that were to air live. Due to a production issue, it didn't air live, but instead went up the next night. Whatever led to this has led to Dave Marquez, who was in charge of production, no longer being in the company. When Courtbauer got the WWE settlement money, Marquez convinced him that they should upgrade and that they need TV trucks like WWE and AEW have to be considered legitimate. GPW Productions, which did productions for MLW from August 2022 to June 2024, used fly packs and do GCW, Defy, Prestige, House of Glory, and others. James Ontivero, who headed the production, ended up quitting, and Marquez took over, and the GPW team quit with Ontivero. The live show was originally to be delayed 45 minutes, then announced for the next day. We don't know about who will be doing production going forward with the next live show on December 5th.
How about GCW? They had a couple big shows this weekend.
Yeah, so I love those mall pictures that look like a huge win.
Yeah, awesome
for them. So that's certainly momentum. The challenge is the Hammerstein Ballroom, which obviously we talked about extensively and was covered extensively in the media last week. So they're a little bit under 700 tickets. I saw a screenshot, updated from WrestleTix, beyond the one that we have in our notes, John. So it's so it's just about under 700 tickets, 50 tickets distributed in a week. So we had talked about like will they be papering? Not papering, excuse me. That's actually a distinction, very important distinction. Will they be flyering like at the Hammerstein shows outside for when AEW comes? And Brett Lauderdale was pretty affirmative on that. Interestingly, they were in Newark and they were in their jumpsuits on brand, and they were giving out flyers for the show. So papering often means that if you're giving out tickets. So somebody had posted a picture, like it didn't really make sense because, it had like the exact row, comp ticket, whatever it may be. And maybe Brett did comp someone. But if you're giving those out at a show, you don't expect a fair amount of those people to come. So like you wouldn't give out like a specific seat number. So a little bit of controversy with that Brett cleared up, which is believable to me that they were just handing out flyers for the show. It's also far out. So like, why would you, give that out for free? So interesting to see if that picks up ticket sales, and I think a smart thing to wear the jumpsuits to stand out there. They had their Bloodsport show. It wasn't covered as much as the previous one, which I was at, as far as I noticed. Curious about that. But upcoming Roulette Intermediate in Brooklyn on November 29th. That's Defy as well. December 1st in Chicago, Talia Hall. Defy is there about the same time as well. Tampa on December 6th, Atlanta December 7th, and Center Stage. It'll be an interesting one to follow. December 13th and 14th, Phoenix and LA. December 22nd, Asbury Park near you, John. December 26th or 28th, Seattle. December 31st, Ridgefield Park, New Jersey. January 10th, Rochester, and January 11th, Columbus. Somebody DM'd me and they were a little concerned about running so many shows in the New York, New Jersey area. I think sometimes you do have to be careful of something like that. And we've seen softness overall, as Brett talked about, that maybe market-wide, really in terms of promotions, besides grassroots independent, the ones that we're seeing really pop is the TNA pay-per-views or premium events, whereas others are struggling now. And that is GCW for the week.
What about WOW, Women of Wrestling, and NLCW?
Yeah, so just a little point here, because we don't often see, outside of WOW talent that's already been established, outside of it who do pass through WOW, we don't often see WOW homegrown talents sort of find their way to the independents. But Next Level Championship Wrestling announced that they finalized a deal with WOW to utilize their female talent for future events. The deal starts January 25th as we bring in Penelope Pink and Sandy Shore.
What's going on at the Mid-Hudson Civic Center?
So, and this is my tradition of keeping to call it that as it gets confusing. It's the MJ Neshawalt Convention Center. So, as we covered for years, John, Northeast Wrestling, this was their home base in addition to the Wapanger Falls, when they would have Wrestling Under the Stars for a number of years. But Mid-Hudson Civic Center, they kept it going, and they haven't run there in a while. So ACW, a startup local promotion, is sort of taking a similar tact in terms of booking a number of talents, including your friend Crowbar, for the show. And it'll be something interesting to watch. They haven't opened up the full venue. It's 1,190 capacity at the moment, but they distributed 305 tickets. It's January 4th show. So interesting to see when you're promoting not necessarily on the name of the promotion or a certain style, but you're bringing in name talents to see if it can still draw in Poughkeepsie.
What's going on with the NWA?
The NWA is continues to build their affiliates now in the Lone Star State. Dog Pound Championship Wrestling Paradox in San Antonio on November 17th. The NWA is officially launched. NWA Texas. So, sorry, I'm blanking. it's the couple. What's their name? She works Jazz.
Yep.
And her husband,
Rodney Mack.
Rodney Mack. Yes, I was going to say something with it's something of a takeoff of a dog or his gimmick.
Dog pound. Yep.
Yeah, dog pound. So so I think it's a smart thing. You already work with them, or at least Jazz. Why not? Everyone wins.
Very true. Good point. Now, finally, one last story. CZW. But what's going on with CZW?
Yeah, so the Cage of Death lives on now in a studio. ACX1 Studios. The CCW Cage of Death is one of the signature events. All invite on December 21st, ACX1 Studios in Atlantic City, New Jersey for Cage of Death 22. So interesting article that covered it. They talked about their struggles and being somewhat lower profile, but still being out there. So curious to see the support for the show. It's a smaller venue and certainly a well-known name for those that are into that sort of thing. So it's interesting to see what comes out.
All right, let's wrap this bad boy up and head towards the plugs. Thank you to Titus O'Neil. Please get his book, Wrestling with Fatherhood. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at 2ManPowerTrip. Lavie.
Follow me on X, Lavie Marg, LAVIE, Check out my long-form articles, LionCubJobSearch.com. Check out our 100 plus LinkedIn group, The Business of the Business. We are the official business podcast of PW Ponderings, and we are distributed by the Creative Control Network.
Thank you, everybody out there, for listening. See you right back here next week for a little business of the business. We'll see you next week.